identity is constantly changing. There's no aspect of your identity, when it's ego-based, that doesn't change. Here's what I look like, here's what I can do, here's who I am, here's how much money I have, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I need. Constant change. It's how you know it's a mirage, it's a projection. The real self is eternal. The real self never changes, never fluctuates. Yeah, the body changes, roles change, everything else changes. But the real self doesn't. So selfishness, when it's a negative aspect, when we say, don't be selfish, it's that ego self. It means don't eat the last cookie when your brother's hungry. Share it or give it to him. It means don't hoard all your money. Give some of it to charity. Other people need it. Don't be selfish means don't keep feeding that ego self at the expense of others. But self-care, self-love, real self-confidence, all of those places where we put self, that's the higher self. That's the true self. Self-confidence, if it's only rooted in what you can do or what you look like, is very shallow. It's not what we're looking for. Because if your self-confidence is rooted only in what you can do or what you look like, it disappears. If your self-love is rooted only in what you look like or what you can do, it disappears. So self-care, yeah, of course, some of it is the body. The body is a temple. But real self-care is not just about sudsy baths with rose petals and, lavender essential oil, which there's certainly nothing wrong with it, and it's nice for 10 or 12 minutes. And then it's over. And you're no different. You might get a slightly better night's sleep that night if you do it before sleep. But it hasn't changed the nature of who you are or how you interact with that, how you project it, how you move through the world. But we've really limited and boxed in this idea of self-care, that it really is just about bubble baths with rose petals and lavender oil, or, a nice smelly candle, or, okay, I'm not against smelly candles, but that's so far from the highest level of care that we're talking about. Self-care is recognize the self. Stop denying the self. See the self. Know the self. Stop lying to yourself about who yourself is. Stop saying things like, you are stupid, you are lazy, you are irresponsible. It's not who you are. Or the opposite. Stop saying things like, you're so brilliant, you're the best, you're the only one who works around here. They're all lies. It's not who you are. So self-care is taking care of the real self. Now, interestingly and paradoxically, soul, spirit, consciousness, it doesn't need us to do something to care for it. It doesn't need a bubble bath. My soul's not saying, oh my God, where are the rose petals today? What it needs is to be seen, expressed, acknowledged, connected with, known. So selfishness versus self-care, I'd say if we're looking on just the level of the physical body, including the brain, of course. So that includes things like don't get overstressed, make sure you get enough sleep, make sure that you have time for your meditation, your yoga, these sorts of things. It's not just body from the neck down, it's also neck up. And that's very important. Very, very, very important. But that's the beginning, not the end of self-care. Similarly, if you look at selfishness, usually we mean it as I described it. It's the ego self. But if you change the self in selfishness to be the capital S self, well, then we all should be selfish. Then that is actually the point. Focus on your capital S self. So don't worry about being selfish if what it is capital S self. Because that capital S self is not separate from others. So there is no world in which my capital S self would take the last cookie or would hoard all my money. Because it knows I'm full, I'm complete. It experiences itself through others. Your joy is my joy. Your pain is my pain. We are one. So you don't have to tell the capital S self to share, to love, to be compassionate. That is its nature. It can't be anything else. So the question is not selfish or self-care. The question is lowercase s or capital S self. And that's the shift that we need. Focusing on just the individual lowercase s self, whether in a situation of selfishness or in a situation of thinking it's self-care, either way, you're going to end up less than fulfilled, less than satisfied, less than full. And that's where the shift comes to the capital S self. Great. Other questions? Yes. There's a mic just behind you.
Namaskaram. I'm Niti Gupta. I want to know how can I balance my life with bhakti, adhyatma and my grahastha jivan.
Sure.
I feel suffocation in my grahastha jivan. I have a lot of responsibilities and I don't do anything. I don't know how I can balance. I want a lot of bhakti.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So how to balance devotion, bhakti, spirituality, adhyatmata, and the everyday life, grahastha ashram, especially meaning the householder phase, the married life, the child rearing, having a career, putting bread on the table type of life. Of course you have a lot of responsibilities. It's beautiful. One of my favorite stories, true story, of B.K.S. Iyengar, who was the founder of Iyengar Yoga. Beautiful yogi, beautiful master. And they tell a story of, typically people who follow the Iyengar school, they practice yoga a long time. It's not the 10-15 minutes of just Surya Namaskar every day. But usually it's an hour, it's an hour and a half, it's 2 hours of yogasana practice a day. Very intense. And there was a question and answer session that was going, and a young woman asked him, I'm really struggling because I have a new baby. And due to this new baby, I'm not able to do my yoga practice every day. And I don't know what to do. And Iyengarji, who, remember, his whole life was focused on telling people to practice an hour and a half, 2 hours, really dedicated every day. He said to her, right now, your baby is your yoga practice. Now, that's the first piece. But you have to really realize that, because as long as there's a part of your mind that's saying, "Main thak gaye, samay kab milega, mujhko apne liye, swayam ke liye," as long as there's that part of your brain wondering when I'll get time for just myself, what you do will always on some level feel like a burden, and it will always keep you separate from actually connecting deeply spiritually, until and unless you are able to really merge fully into that practice, that service, until and unless that can be your bhakti, be your adhyatmata. There is nothing more spiritual than giving of yourself fully to others. It's interesting when someone gives of themselves fully in a case where, it's a Mother Teresa situation, for example, that type. You're giving of yourself to others. People say, wow, what a saint. But when you're giving of yourself fully, and the people you're giving to happen to be your husband and your kids, no one says, wow, what a saint. We've got somehow this idea that if the people we're giving ourselves to are not our family members, then it is much more noble. If we're just giving of ourselves to family members, it's less noble. But you have to realize that's not true. Giving of yourself fully, completely, unselfishly, being just an instrument through which love flows, is a beautiful dharma, a beautiful way of connecting with the divine. Can you see the divine in your husband, in your children, in your extended family members? It's a very, very powerful way of living. And. So that's over here. And. Whichever way we express and live our dharma and our bhakti, whatever actions we use, whatever karma we engage in, whether I'm cooking meals, cleaning the floor, washing clothes, taking care of the family, whether I'm running an NGO, whether I'm building buildings, whatever I'm doing, I need some time every day in which I reconnect with that is not the role I play. Whatever the role may be. My dharma may be doctor. It may be mother. It may be president of a country. It may be father. Whatever it may be. I need some time every day in which I connect in my meditation with that in me, that of me, that is not the role, that is not the actions, that is just eternal self, that is just soul, spirit, consciousness, no story, no history, no agenda, no responsibilities, no nothing. Just that Sat Chit Anand, that existence, truth, consciousness, bliss, that is the core of who we are. Sometime every day that I can just connect with that. So you need to carve that time out. You have a lot of responsibilities, yes. But allow this to be right there at the beginning. There's a great story of a teacher in school who one day says to the class, he holds up a big glass container, and he fills the container with rocks. And he says to the class, "Is the container full?" And they all say, yeah, it's full. Then he takes from under his desk a bowl of little rocks. And he pours the whole bowl of them into the same container that the kids had already said was full. Okay, now it's all got this in it. He says, "Now is it full?" And they say, yes, now it's 100% full. And then from under the desk, he takes out a bowl of sand. Because there's space. First he filled it with the big rocks. They thought it was full. No more rocks will go, but all the little rocks went. Then there was no more space for them, but the sand went. He said, "Now is it full?" They said, yes, now nothing else can go. Then he gets a pitcher of water, pours it in, and I love the story because it's this beautiful demonstration of the fullness of our life, and how what most of us do is we fill it first with the things that are not actually so important to us. And when we do that, when it comes to the things that are important, it doesn't feel like there's room. And that's why you've got to really ask yourself, what are the rocks in your life, the big ones? What are the first things that you put in that container? What are they? And make sure that they're really in alignment with your highest values. I mean, really, okay, fine, the laundry doesn't get done one day. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure everyone in your family has more than one pair of underwear. I'm sure everyone has more than one pair of clothes. Okay, so one day laundry's not done. It's fine. Okay, so one day the house doesn't get clean. All right, it's a mess. End of the world, worst case situation, someone unexpectedly shows up at the door. You're embarrassed. They think you're a mess. Okay. Nobody ever died because their neighbors thought they were a mess. It's not the end of the world. But if you look at these types of responsibilities, that's what ends up filling up the container. Oh my God, the laundry. Oh my God, the house. Oh my God, the errands. And then when it comes time to, well, what about my meditation? What about my spiritual practice? What about even just the time that we as a family sit together? Right? Is there time? Or are we on such a tight schedule that the minute dinner's over, whoever's on washing the dishes chores better get up and do it, because otherwise, got to fit in all the things. And so we miss the important things. So figure out in your life, what are the most important things? We've all got a lot of responsibilities. I guarantee you, if we go around, even him, I guarantee you, even he at this age, this big, is going to tell you, yeah, I have this and this and this. Don't let them unnecessarily fill up your life. Figure out what is most important to you. What is it? What is it that are those key things? And then there will always be room for other things. as the story demonstrates. It's not that after the big rocks there's no more room for anything. But the dilemma is, if you put in the non-important things first, if you fill that container first with water or with sand, you could never get the big rocks in it. It only works if you put in the big rocks first. If you fill the container of your life with the stuff that's not important, the laundry, the house being clean, this, that, all right. Is your inbox really empty? Okay, I mean, I can't even remember how many years it's been since my inbox hasn't been empty. I remember the last time, and it was probably 15 years ago. There was a moment you realize, okay, this is the last day that I'm ever going to actually clear my inbox before I go to sleep. So be it. It happens. There are more important things. Figure out, what are the rocks, what's the sand, and get them in. Get in your spiritual practice. Get in all of the ways that you can be what we speak about as seva, meaning seva doesn't just mean I sweep the floors or I serve food, but it means any way in which I am using my minutes and moments, using my abilities, using my gifts to bring about greater peace, understanding, love, happiness in the world. That I am using them to be this instrument in God's hands of God's will on earth. Get that stuff in first. If, God forbid, every once in a while the kids have pizza for dinner instead of a homemade, it's okay. It's okay. Make sure the real important things get in first. And I promise you, for your children, occasionally not having their favorite pair of jeans washed, having to have pizza for dinner every once in a while, having the living room not vacuumed or their room not cleaned, compared to having mom present and available and calm and full of love, I promise you they would much rather not have the clean jeans and not have the full meal, but have mom present, calm, attentive, there with them, full of love, rather than frazzled because she's too busy or frustrated because she doesn't have time for herself. Okay? So I've given you two different, what may seem like opposite, but they're actually not opposite. They're complementary. Different ways of looking at the exact same situation. Okay. Good. Yes. Yes.
Radhe Radhe, ma'am.
Radhe Radhe.
I am Sachi from Mathura.
Wonderful.
Ma'am, I want to ask that how can we overcome our weaknesses?
Great question. Do you feel comfortable sharing what those weaknesses are? Do you feel comfortable sharing what those, maybe an example of one or two of those weaknesses that you're looking to overcome?
Ma'am, I am very short-tempered.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations for only having one weakness. Okay. So, short-tempered, impatient, easily frustrated. What it means is that you have very, very high expectations. High expectations of yourself, of other people, and of the world. And the problem with expectations is you don't have any control over whether they get fulfilled. I may have an expectation that you are nice to me, but I can't actually make it happen because I don't have any control over you. I might have an expectation that it's not going to rain while we're sitting here in satsang, but I don't have any control over that. And the problem is that when what we expect doesn't happen, we get frustrated. And this is why Pujya Swamiji always says that the answer is to accept more, expect less. It doesn't mean that you become complacent. It doesn't mean that you give up. What it means is that you are able to see the world and other people, and also yourself, as much more perfect. Everybody has been created by God. Everybody has been created by a perfect God, right? Meaning God doesn't make mistakes. God didn't leave anybody half done or make anybody overcooked. So everybody is exactly the way that God made them. If God can accept them as they are, what about us? So you accept them and you accept everything that happens. And again, it doesn't mean that you don't care or try or work for things, but it means you understand I don't have any control over that. Therefore, the only thing I have control over is my own reactions. So I am going to put my attention and energy on working on my own reactions. And I'm going to not lose my temper. I'm going to have patience, meaning if something happens that upsets me, I'm not going to speak. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to breathe deeply. I'm going to chant Om or a mantra if I have one. And I'm going to look at finding love in my heart for that person. And look at this beautiful demonstration we're getting. Look at this. Middle of the non-rainy hot season. But the universe has decided to give us this beautiful demonstration. Right? Now, this much we can handle, but give it another couple minutes, we might all have to run inside. Okay. It's all part of the perfection of the universe. And we understand I cannot control the rain, but I can control myself, my reactions. And ultimately, the rain or no rain is not where my happiness comes from. My happiness comes from my reaction. Right? Some people may say, oh my God, it rained. I can't believe it. That's in the middle of my satsang. That's not fair. Other people get to have satsang without any rain. That's not fair. Then I'm going to be miserable and angry. Or I could say, wow, look at this. Akash Ganga. Ganga from the sky. What a blessing. It's all in how you take it. So decide that you're going to, in every situation, ask yourself, how can I have a different reaction to this? Ask yourself one question all the time. Whenever you feel annoyed or frustrated or like you're about to get angry, ask yourself, is there any alternative? Is there any alternative? Is being angry the only option? Or might there be an alternative? And if there's an alternative, then see what happens if you take it. You can always get angry next time. But this time, see what happens if you choose the other way of responding. Does that make sense? Do you think you can do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Thank you.
Of course. Wonderful. Beautiful. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Sudhir. I came from Pune. I have been writing, my question is regarding anxiety, handling anxiety and fear.
I'm so sorry. I cannot hear you. Yeah. Now I can hear you.
My
Thank
name
you.
is Sudhir. I came from Pune. My question is regarding handling anxiety and fear. So I'm connected with spirituality from past 7-8 years. I do meditation. I get into deep meditative states also. And in general, my awareness or consciousness remains good and high. But when the emotion of fear comes or thought of anxiety comes, then it drains all my energy. So I have been taken professional help from.
Does the feeling of fear and anxiety come in your meditation
Not
or
in
in your
meditation.
other life?
When I'm not meditating.
When you're not meditating. Okay.
Yes. In meditation, meditative state when I'm doing some day-to-day work. So that suddenly the anxiety or fear comes to the mind, and then it drains the entire energy. So overcome this problem, I have taken some help already, and the psychologist has given some thought diary, emotion diary. I'm watching where the thought is coming, where the emotions are coming on my body. I'm noting it down also. But because you are at a very high level of consciousness, you are the ultimate awareness. I would like to seek your guidance on this from that level.
Yeah. So anxiety, fear, it stems ultimately from a feeling that you are not going to be okay. Sometimes on a small level, sometimes on a big level.
Yes.
Low level anxiety stress is the sense that it's not right. And that because it's not right, I'm not going to be right. So for example, let's say I'm really stressed and anxious about getting stuck in traffic. Okay, let's just choose a simple example. Super anxious about being stuck in traffic. Why? Because, oh my God, it means I'm going to be late. Okay, so why would that be such a big deal? Well, because if I'm late, then I might miss something important. If I miss something important, it means I might actually lose something in my life, lose an opportunity, lose a possibility, and I would be less. I would suffer. Therefore, I have a big anxiety around traffic, let's say. If you look at any fear, any anxiety, at the core root of it is, if this happens, I will not be okay. Stressed about work. Why? Well, at the end of the day, I'll get fired. If I get fired, I won't have money. If I don't have money, I'm going to be homeless. If I'm homeless, then I'm going to die. Or it could also be the ego self is not okay. Sometimes it's not the physical body, sometimes it's the ego self. Take the stressed at work example again. Stressed at work, why? Because, oh my God, I'm not going to get this project done properly. My boss is going to think I'm an idiot. At the monthly review meeting, when I have to stand up and tell about it, everybody's going to laugh at me. I'm going to be humiliated. Therefore, I will not be okay. Therefore, my stress. All of the fear and anxiety and stress is rooted in this idea. Something is not right. And if it stays not right, I'm not going to be right. My physical self, my loved ones, or my ego self. The only solution to fear is faith.
Yes.
Faith.
Faith, yes.
It's the only solution. is to recognize that whatever happens, I will be okay. Whatever happens, I am in the hands of the divine. Yes, on a cognitive behavioral level, your therapist will give you wonderful ways of working individually in that moment with the anxiety, in the body, using the breath, using the thoughts. We've got actually a lot of techniques around this. It's wonderful. But on the deepest spiritual level, faith in the divine, in the perfection of the divine, is actually the only ultimate antidote to it. It's like that beautiful story of the little boy on the boat, and the boat is sinking, shipwreck. And everybody's panicking and screaming and getting life vests and life boats and whatnot. And a little boy is just sitting on the deck in the midst of the commotion, very calm. Someone says to him, "Aren't you worried you're going to die?" And he says, "But my mom's over there."
Yeah.
Like, mom is there, that's it. If mom is there, everything's okay. Ship goes down, doesn't go down. Capsize, don't capsize. My mom is there, it's all going to be fine. That feeling, that faith, is the only antidote to fear. I'll share with you a true story, and we'll end satsang with this. But it's one of my favorite stories about Pujya Swamiji. True story about fear. So this goes back 30 plus years ago, because it was before I had met him. It goes back to the late 80s, early 90s. Pujya Swamiji had just founded the project of the Encyclopedia of Hinduism. And there were many years in which he was traveling constantly across America, England, Europe, Fiji, Australia, everywhere, to raise awareness about the project, to raise a renewed love and vigor and commitment and pride in the Dharma, in the culture, amongst Indians and Hindus around the world. And he would travel in many cases, sometimes with other renowned saints, and sometimes he would travel with the chief editor of the encyclopedia, who was a South Indian professor named K.L. Seshagiri Rao. On this particular story, he was with Dr. Rao, and they were in an airplane in the US. And the airplane was flying into or out of, I can't remember, Chicago. Now, the Chicago airport is famous for having a lot of turbulence. There's a lot of storms and whatnot. And suddenly there's lots and lots of turbulence. And suddenly the plane drops 1,000 feet. The pilot gets on and tells everybody to take crash positions. People are screaming and crying. Pilot says, "Looks like we're going to have a crash landing, take crash positions." All of the overhead bins are opening, things are falling out. I mean, really like,
Yes.
khatam ho gaya. This is the end.
Yeah.
Swamiji's writing on, one of those like big yellow lined pads. So he's writing and he's writing. And plane drops another 1,000 feet. People scream, crying, holding their loved ones. Swamiji keeps writing. Finally, Dr. Rao can't take it anymore. Turns to Swamiji and he says, "What are you writing?" He says, "We're all going to die. What are you writing?" Pray, say a mantra, like do something, but stop writing. And Swamiji says, "I'm writing my speech." Dr. Rao says, "What speech? There's not going to be any speeches. We're all dying." And and Swamiji says, well, if this plane goes down, if this plane goes down, which everybody thinks it's going to do, and everybody dies, which everybody thinks they're going to die, it means I will be the only survivor of this plane crash.
Yes.
And since I'm going to be the only survivor of the plane crash, naturally the media is going to want to take my interview.
So I'm writing.
My English is not very good at all, and so I thought that I would at least start working on my speech so that I could ask you any questions that I have about the English before you die along with everybody else. He said, I know I'm not dying. Can't tell you about the plane, but I know I'm going to be okay. And so if it turns out I'm the sole survivor of the crash, I better get my speech worked out while I've got a expert English speaker sitting next to me. In those days, Pujya Swamiji didn't speak much English at all. So that is a height of fearlessness that most of us will never reach. And that's okay. That's okay. I think there is something very human about being afraid as a plane you're in is plummeting to the ground. But this is the example of what it is like when you have actually fully transcended the human condition.
Yes.
But just because we can't reach that height doesn't mean that we can't aspire to at least have enough faith in the perfection of whatever the divine plan is. That jo bhi ho jaye,
Yes.
acha to hoga hai na.
Yes.
Whatever happens, it's going to be right. It's going to be good. Because God is good. And I may not be able to see the goodness of it in this tiny moment. In this intersection of time and space, it may look awful. But if I have enough of a perspective, enough of a big picture, then I can actually see how even this was right and good.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Beautiful.
I have a second question. This is regarding.
We'll start tomorrow with your second question.
Okay.
Kal isse shuru karenge
Right.
hum log.
Okay. Thank you.
Beautiful. Sure. Ask your question and we'll take it tomorrow. If that's okay, chalo koi baat nahi. Okay, you can ask it and we'll take it. Yeah. Sure.
My name is Pankaj and I have come from Delhi. So my name is Pankaj and I have come from Delhi. So of late, I have started kind of walking on this religious path. Though earlier I was not that much religious because of my work, because of my job and it all. And I've been, doing that daily stuff of, praying and aarti and that all stuff almost for almost 2 years now. I've got 2 grown-up kids. My son is 17 years old and I have a daughter of 15 years old. I'm trying to push them too hard every day to, kind of do some aarti, do some stuff, some religious stuff.
Yeah.
But they don't listen at all to me. They're all time busy in their phones and internet and computers and movies and that all. Their school work and a lot of other stuff, but they're not at all interested in this religious things and aartis and that all. So how ethical is for me to push them every day? Because whenever I push them, it triggers a kind of fight at the home, and then even I lose my temper.
Beautiful. So the more you push, the more they're going to rebel. The more they rebel, the farther they're going to go. And that isn't what you want. You want them to come closer,
Yes.
not go farther. But if you push and you force, especially at that age, at 7, you can push. At 17, you cannot push. The 7-year-old will go along. the 17-year-old will hate you for it. And in their minds, they will decide, the minute I'm out of this house, I'm never doing this stupid thing again. And that's the last thing you want. When our children are very young, that's the age where we make them do things. And they won't fight so much because they're going along with things. We sit, we close our eyes, we meditate, we chant, we pray, we do arti. As they get that age, that becomes the age to be much more their friend than the one who's telling them what to do. Because you want to keep them close. You don't want to push them away. And the last thing you want them anyway to do is to do arti while they are miserable doing it. There's no benefit. Instead, give them spiritual experiences that actually will touch them. If they're doing arti but they don't feel bhakti, devotion, they're just going through the motions. What's the point?
Absolutely.
Neither they're benefiting nor God is super happy that somebody who doesn't want to be doing it is just, waving a lamp in my face. Right? It's not achieving anything.
Absolutely.
Instead, give them spiritual experiences that they can actually feel. Maybe something with other youth, maybe something at the temple. Bring them here, bring them into satsang, bring them into activities, bring them into arti here. It's got to be something where they actually feel it, not where they're just going through the motions. Because otherwise they start to think that spirituality is just rituals. Okay, there's nothing in there, it's just rituals. You have to enable them to feel something. And if they don't feel it doing arti, okay. Can you get them feeding hungry people?
Okay.
Take them to a soup kitchen. Get them to feed hungry people. They don't want to do arti, fine. Get them making sandwiches that then you go out and you give to the homeless people in the street.
Okay.
Yeah. Have something, if not every day, depending on the amount of time, at least once a week, minimum, that you come together as a family and you are loving God through other people. Or you come together and you're planting trees. You're doing something that connects them to spirit, to spirituality, meaning life is sacred. Humans are sacred. Humans who are suffering should be taken care of. Mother Earth is sacred. They don't have to only worship God with kapoor and ghee and samagri. They can worship God by feeding the hungry. Go out and give blankets to people who are sleeping in the street. Teach them that the divine is in all of these people. Let that be their arti. You keep doing the other arti. Let them see it. Don't push them. Just you do it. You keep doing it. But you should do it in such a way that your personality after the arti, after your meditation, you should be very careful. You should never emerge from the temple and start shouting at them or being annoyed. Then they realize, what is the point?
It actually happens every day.
So what they should see is when Dad comes out of the mandir, he's so calm, he's so peaceful, he's full of such love, because then in their life, when they're feeling frustrated, it will come to them. Oh yeah, my dad always went into the mandir. Oh yeah, my dad always chanted some mantras. But only if you demonstrate to them that it actually works. If you're frustrated before you go in the temple and you're frustrated when you come out, they're not gonna learn that it benefits anything. Let yourself really be changed. as you're doing arati, as you're praying, let yourself change. And then let that changed self emerge from the temple.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I got it.
Of course. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. So much love to you all.